Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This video is my January reading wrap-up, so I'm going to be talking about all the books that I read in the month of January and just my thoughts on all those books. I read 14 books in the month of January, and without further ado, let's just hop into the books. The first book that I read in January and the first book that I read in 2019 was Scarlet by Marissa Meyer. This is a very popular book. Most people have already read it, but I'm one of the few people who've never read the Lunar Chronicles, so here I am reading the Lunar Chronicles. But this is the second book in the Lunar Chronicles, and the Lunar Chronicles is a sci-fi series. The whole series is 4 books and a novella and 2 novellas. Anyway, the series is a sci-fi retelling of classic fairy tales. So the first book, Cinder, focuses mainly on the Cinderella fairy tale, but this book, Scarlet, focuses on Little Red Riding Hood, as you could probably tell by the title and the cover. But Little Red Riding Hood is the focus of this, and this is in a sci-fi retelling world of these fairy tales. And to be honest, I liked Scarlet less than I liked Cinder. I like Cinder way more than I liked Scarlet. I still did like Scarlet, and I do plan on continuing with the series. I don't know, I'm kind of iffy on the series. Maybe it's because the series is so hyped that I had like too high of an expectations, but I did like Cinder. But I don't know, Scarlet kind of fell flat for me. I gave this, I think on Goodreads I gave it 4 stars, but it was more like a 3.5 stars for me. I don't know, I'm still debating. Okay, the next 2 books that I read in the month of January were mangas, and they were Horomia Volume 1 and 2. I'm not really a big manga reader, but I was trying to get into more mangas this year. That was one of my kind of unofficial goals of the year, was to read more manga. So this is one of those series that I've seen pop up a lot other booktubers channels. It's one of the popular series, and I thought it would be a good place for me to start, so I picked them up, and I really enjoyed these. These books were so cute, you guys. Like, they were cute. It was like the perfect little high school meet cute romance, slow burn. Like, Volume 2, I'm still waiting for the romance to kind of just like kickstart and be like a couple already, but I really love this series. I gave both of these 4 stars, and they were just super cute, and I highly recommend them, and I'm really excited to read Volume 3 as soon as possible. So the 4th book that I read in the month of January was The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This is a fantasy series. And if you watched my first video, you saw me haul this book, so I'm not going to go too much into what it's about. It's just a fantasy series that takes place in this fae world, and it follows this girl named Jude, mainly, who is human, and her dealing with that in fairy. And I did like this book. I gave this book a 4 stars. I highly recommend it. I'm not going to talk too much about what it's about. Like I said, it's my last video, so if you want to know more about the plot, you can go watch that video. But I like this book, and I was kind of iffy going into this book because I had heard a lot of differing ideas. I heard a lot of very mixed reviews about this book. A lot of people didn't like it, a lot of people liked it, and it seemed like it was either or. I saw like 50-50, you liked it or you didn't like it, but I ended up liking it. And yeah, the next book that I read in January was one of my favorite books that I read thus far in the year, and that is City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. This book is phenomenal. Like, I don't know how to describe it. I love it. This book is phenomenal. This is an adult fantasy novel, and it's a series. You guys, I don't know how to describe it. This is also, well, I also described this book in my book haul, but this is a high fantasy series about this girl named, I forgot her name for a second. This girl named Nari, and Nari takes place in 18th century Cairo, and Nari is a con woman who lives in Cairo, and she kind of pulls this con and it ends up going wrong, and she accidentally summons this mythical warrior genie type person, and he ends up taking her to this magical city called Devabad, and it's so phenomenal. She goes on this little adventure with him, and there's romance, and there's political intrigue, and there's just everything you could want in a fantasy novel. Read it. The second book just came out in January, but we're gonna get to that. Next, I read a book that I've already read before. I read this book in high school actually, and it was assigned reading for my English class, and I ended up really liking it, and I just decided to reread it this month, and that book is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Pride and Prejudice is probably one of my favorite books that I read in school for English class, like one of the few books that I actually thoroughly enjoyed reading. And I love this movie. This is me and my mom's movie. It is a romance. It is set in England back in the day. I don't think they gave a specific year of when it was set, but it's about this girl, and she has a lot of sisters, and she has like this her mother really just wants her and all her sisters be married off to wealthy men, and then these two wealthy men move in across the street, and chaos ensues with her mother trying to matchmake and set them up with these two eligible bachelors. And I mean, most people probably already know that, have seen the movie or read the book, but if you haven't, I recommend giving this a try, even if you're not a classics person. If you like contemporary romances, I still think you would like Pride and Prejudice, because it does still kind of have a contemporary romance vibe, even though it's set in the day. Back in the day. The next book I read took me by surprise. I was not expecting to like this book as much as I liked this book, and that is Alex Approximately by Jean Bennett. I wasn't expecting to love this book, but I really loved this book, and I just realized that I haven't been giving star ratings for the other books. City of Brass was 5 stars, as you can probably tell from my rant review, and so was Pride and Prejudice. Back to our regularly scheduled program. Okay, Alex Approximately, I want to say I gave this 5 stars too, and that is shocking. I'm not usually a contemporary person. I'm just recently getting more into contemporary because fantasy is my genre. I love me some fantasy, and I'm just now really getting into reading contemporaries. Within the past couple of months is when I really started reading contemporaries, and I really enjoyed this. It is kind of tropey. It is kind of predictable, but I don't know why I like this book so much, but I did like it. So this book is about this girl whose name escapes me. I'm bad with names, apparently. This book is about this girl named Bailey who ends up meeting this boy named Alex on this website for film fanatics, and she starts talking to him, and she realizes that he lives in the same city that her dad lives in. So when she ends up moving to stay with her dad, she is on a mission to figure out Alex's true identity, and she doesn't tell him that she is moving to this town. So she's trying to figure out who Alex is, and she ends up taking this summer job at this museum, and she ends up meeting this boy while she's working at this job named Porter, and Porter ends up being her arch nemesis. That's literally what she says in the book. Yeah, it's on the back. But the only person I really see is standing against the ticket booth, Porter Roth, beautiful body, head full of curls, and cocky smile, my arch nemesis. And it's kind of predictable, but then it has moments that aren't predictable, and it's just cute. I just liked it. I don't know. I can't explain it. Read it. The next book that I read in January was The Queen of Blood by Sarah Beth Durst. This is an adult fantasy novel that I also hauled in my last video. I just realized that I just read most of the books that I hauled in my video. No, I hauled the second book in the series, but I did talk about the first book because it's the first book. Anywho, I have like 6 more books to get through, so I'm not gonna go too in-depth on this plot. If you want to know more about the plot, you can watch my last video. But this is an adult fantasy series about this world where these spirits don't like humans and they're out to kill humans, and the only people that can control these spirits are these young women who are born with the ability to control spirits. And these women, most of them end up going to an academy so they can train to become the future queen, because the queen is the only person who can control all the spirits. This book is about one of these girls who is born with powers, and she goes into training to be the future queen, and it's really good. I gave this 4 stars. I enjoyed it. The next book that I read was also another reread for me, and that was Lord of Shadows by Cassandra Clare. I was rereading this because Queen of Eyre and Darkness came out in December, and I wanted to reread Lord of Shadows before I read Queen of Eyre and Darkness. So I've been rereading this literally since December. Like, I was listening to it on audio, and it just took me forever and a day to get through this book, even though this is, sorry about the glare, even though this is a really good book. Like, it's not like it's a bad book, it's not like it's boring. It just took me forever to listen to it. Maybe because I was so excited to get to Queen of Eyre and Darkness that I was kind of just like, I don't want to read this. I want to read Queen of Eyre and Darkness, but I wanted to reread it because I knew there were parts that I've probably forgotten about since I first read it. And I mean, it was a reread, so I my rating didn't change. I still gave it 4.5 stars. It's kind of hard to give this like a hard rating, but 4.5 is where I'm at, because the ending, I don't know how I feel about the ending, so I don't know how I feel about rating this book, because the ending, if you read it, you know. If you don't, you need to know, because the ending, Cassandra Clare, I don't know how to feel. Anywho, moving on to a happier topic. The next book that I read was Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling. Because this book is this book. Who doesn't love Harry Potter? I mean, I know there are people out there, but who doesn't love Harry Potter? Anywho, as you can tell, I love Harry Potter, because he's Harry Potter, and I love him, and I love this book. But I'm one of those people that loves rereading books that I love, and if you can't tell by the whole little love rant that I just gave you, I love this book. And surprise, 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 I've never reread Harry Potter. I read the book series originally in middle school and loved it. I've seen the movies 1,000 times, but I have never physically actually reread Harry Potter, the books. And I've been saying I'm gonna reread these books for years now, and I'm just getting around to rereading them, and they're so good. I love them. They give me all the feels. They give me all the feels. All the feels. But I really want to reread them because I know there are parts in the movies that are left out of the books. I said that backwards. There are part of the books that I left out of the movies, and I wanted to reread the books just because I'm not gonna give a synopsis about Harry Potter. I feel like if you don't know what Harry Potter's about, where have you been? Not even saying you have to like it, but if you've never seen the Harry Potter movies, if you've never read the books, if you've never seen people talk about the movies, if you've never heard people read the books, heard people talk about the movies, the books, where have you been? Especially on BookTube. If you're watching a BookTuber, I expect you to know what this book's about. Even if you never read it, even if you don't want to read it, I expect you to know. So I'm not gonna explain it. 5 stars. Sorry. I have feelings about Harry Potter. I feel very deeply about it. Next book that I read in the month of January was Your Welcome Universe by Whitney Gardner. And I don't know, you guys, like, I gave this book 3 stars. I gave it 3 stars. I was hoping to love this book. I was going in hoping I would love this book, and I liked it, but I didn't love it. And I liked it, but it wasn't amazing. It wasn't something that I don't even know how to describe it. But this book, I don't know how to feel about it. It's about, let me tell you what it's about. This book is about a girl who is deaf, and she goes to a deaf school, and she ends up getting expelled from her school for graffiti. Like, someone wrote something rude about her best friend, so she covers it up with some of her graffiti and some of her artwork, and she gets kicked out of school, and she ends up having to go to a hearing school. And it's just about her dealing with being in this hearing school, her just dealing with being who she is, and she loves graffiti, she loves tagging, and so she goes out, and it's just about her doing her art and going to the school and just her life. I was super excited for this. I've never read a book where the main character is deaf or hard of hearing, so I was really excited for the representation in this book, but I don't know, the actual book didn't live up to all the excitement I was feeling about reading it. And yeah, the next book that I read in the month of January was Queen of Eyre and Darkness by Cassandra Clare. The series is over, you guys. I was about to say the Infernal Devices, the Dark Artifices is over. And this book was a monster. This book was 880 pages, I believe. This book is long. It's long. This is the second month in a row where I read like a thick book. I read Kingdom of Ash in December, and then I read this in January. But with that being said, I really enjoyed this. This book went places that I 100% wasn't expecting it to go. Like, I didn't expect it to go to, I don't want to spoil anything. It's hard to talk about a third book in a series without spoiling anything. But this is the book set in the Shadowhunter world. It's the third series that has been set in, it's the third book in the third series that has been set in the Shadowhunter world. And I can't really explain what the series is about because that's kind of spoilery for the other series in the book. Series is, ooh, that sounded awful. But I can't really talk what this is about because I don't want to spoil. You can't talk about it without spoiling the rest of the Shadowhunter books because this is the last series, the most recent Shadowhunter book series. So I don't know how to explain this book, but just know most people already know what the series is about. So here it is. I think I gave this 4 stars, but it's more like a 4.5. I think 4.5 is pretty accurate. I really liked it. I can't talk about it. I can't even say what happened. Like, I can't tell you why I liked it. I can't tell you what parts I liked because I don't know how to describe it without ruining everything, but I liked it. The next book that I read in January was The Kingdom of Copper, you guys. This is the second book. Actually, I don't know if the series has a name. This is the sequel to City of Brass, which is the book I was talking about earlier. This book just came out in January. I read it the week it came out because... Sorry for the glare yet again. Okay. The feels. It just... I don't even know which one I like more. I don't know if I like this book more or I don't know if I like Kingdom of Copper more or City of Brass more. They were neck and neck. But no matter which one I like more, they were both amazing. Amazing. Read them. 5 stars. Last book that I read in January was another 2019 release, and that was The Wicked King by Holly Black, which is the sequel to The Cruel Prince. I read a lot of books and their sequels that month. I think I liked The Cruel Prince more. But I don't know, they're kind of neck and neck, but I think I like The Cruel Prince more. But then again, do I? I gave this 4 stars, just like I gave The Cruel Prince. I did like The Wicked King. It was a good sequel. I don't know what else to say. So that is it. That's all the books I read in January, all 14 of them. I was aiming for 15, but I didn't quite get there. I did start a 15th book in January, and I got like halfway through it. So, I mean, I'll briefly mention it. It was Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo, because I've never read the Grisha trilogy before. So I started with Shadow and Bone in December, and I started Siege and Storm at the end of January, right after King of Scars came out, but I didn't finish it. I've since finished it. I finished it. It's the first book I finished in February, so I will talk more about it in my February wrap up, but I did get halfway through it. So, thought I'd mention it. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye!